Well, good afternoon. I'm going to try and match the energy of the guy before me, but I don't think I'll be very successful. That was quite impressive. Thank you. Also, I tell my wife that I've been listening to presentations about diamonds when I get home, and she says, so what did you do? I talked about tape. Well, okay. So I have around about 20 minutes, and firstly, thank you for the kind invitation today to talk to you on a topic which happens to be the privilege of my job, which is creating new stuff. At the end of the day, that's my job. My job is to create new things and to create the environment via which new things can happen. And so I'm going to talk a little bit today about innovative processes and ideas. And I don't know how many people know about 3M, what 3M is, what we do. And so I'm going to spend just a couple of minutes just introducing the company, just so everybody understands a little bit about the background. So, we're a pretty big company, around about $33 billion of sales, a global company. We have our headquarters in Minnesota in the United States of America, the very, very, very cold bit right at the top, close to Canada. We're really a technology company. Our trademark really is science applied to life. And that's our business model. We take science, we develop technology, we put it into innovative solutions, and we bring those products to market. That's basically what we do. And as you see, we've got a very strong focus on IP. So over the history of our company, 115,000 patents granted. And we spend every year around about $1.7 billion globally on R&D. Some of that is in product development, and some of that is in fundamental technology development as well. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. This is the vision we have as a company, and you see, I mentioned already technology, but we're about technology, and we're about products, and we're about innovation. Our product portfolio has around about 55,000 different products going into many, many, many different markets, and I'll talk about that. But the other thing I draw your attention to is our vision talking about every company, every home, every life. So really, when you think about that, what that says is 3M really claims to have relevance to every single person in the world. When you think about every life, every company, every home, we want to have solutions for everybody, and I'll talk a little bit about how we try to do that. Very fundamentally, this is how we innovate. So I want to talk about the process of innovation. I want to talk about how we come up with ideas and how we really kind of rally around to solve those problems. And this is really it. We put the customer in the center of what we do, and what that means is we really kind of work very closely with our customers to really try and understand the needs that they have, the needs of today, but importantly, the needs of the future. We have a broad technology portfolio from which we can draw, and we combine those technologies and bring them to solve those customers' problems. And then, we work very collaboratively. We have an organization which is really built around collaboration, sharing, and interaction. So I'll talk about those really themes over the next few minutes. So when we think about those insights, when we think about the inputs to our innovation process, where do those ideas come from? Well, I'm going to talk really about three places that those ideas come from. They come from industry and the market. We see around us the world changes, industries develop into different areas, and this is an example from the automotive industry. A few years ago, not all of these things would have been on this chart. The automotive industry today is driven by weight reduction, big deal. Emissions reduction, noise and vibration reduction, the move towards electrification, the move towards autonomous vehicles. The way in which we will build cars even today, but let's say 2, 3, 4 years in the future, will not be the same way we built cars 10 years ago. There's much more electronics in the car today. There's much more need for different solutions related to heat and energy management, related to batteries, et cetera, et cetera. So markets and developing markets provide a tremendous insight and source of ideas that we can work with. I think the other thing that provides a tremendous source of ideas is really kind of the environment around us. The world is changing, climate is changing, the pressures and regulations are changing. And this also gives us some ideas for new technologies, new solutions to meet the needs of the world of tomorrow. And so, in some ways, we kind of might call this sustainability-inspired innovation. Ideas that come about from a changing regulatory landscape. But really, right at the heart of it, it starts with our customers. And, two examples here, really. One old one. So the one on the left there that you see is actually from around about 1920, where we were actually working with a company in the United States, quite a small company called Ford Motor Company. Maybe you've heard of them. So 3M actually started, the 3Ms of 3M stand for Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing. So we actually started as a mining company, and we were pulling out abrasive mineral and rocks. And so abrasives and sandpaper was actually our first product, and we were taking abrasives to Ford. And they wanted to use the abrasives to smooth the paint. At that time, you may remember or may have heard the quote from Henry Ford that said, you may have any color you like as long as it's black. But the customers didn't want black. They wanted to be able to have different colors on their car, black and white cars and whatever. But the automotive company did not have a way to make smooth lines or indeed to mask areas of the car so they could spray the different areas with different colored paint. So the guy who was the abrasives expert, who understood how to make abrasives, which is basically paper and glue and abrasive, very simply, said, well, look, what happens if I don't put the abrasive and I just have paper and glue? Then maybe now I have a tape. And that's what he did. So now he has a tape, and he takes the tape to the customer, and now we're selling tape. Now we're selling abrasive and tape, and we're solving the customer's problem. So that's a very old example, and a much more recent example is this solution from within our healthcare business, where this is actually an intravenous site, IV site, and we have dressings for those IV sites in our portfolio. But the nurse could not see traditionally underneath the dressing. And so they kept having to lift the dressing to examine the site. And that caused skin redness, and it also caused more infection. So what we actually did was we actually put a window or an island in the dressing such that the IV site underneath it was actually transparent, and we could inspect that the site was still in good condition, there was no infection, and it was still working. And so all of these products that I talk about, they all came from working with our customers. They all come by understanding the insight about how and why customers were doing things, and then combining them to come up with new stuff. And as you kind of think about all these things, you think about markets, you think about customers, you think about sustainability, and you think about all of the other ways in which you get ideas. You usually actually end up with a lot of ideas. The ideas really pile up very quickly once you actually start. And in some cases, it's very difficult to stop them, but you have to stop them. And at some point, you have to kind of get them into some form of manageable piece. And so, we spend a lot of time actually trying to refine this process, whereby we have a very clear set of guidelines around how we take those ideas, how we prioritize those ideas, and then try and make sure that we work on the right things. And a lot of that work is done right up front. There's a lot of market understanding, there's a lot of industry understanding that needs to be done before we even do any technology development, before we even do any product development. Because the product development actually becomes quite expensive. So you want to make sure you're working on the right things before you actually start spending a lot of money on doing the development. And so we kind of manage that through then a gate process. And then I think, to be honest with you, there's one thing, if there's one area we really can improve, and this is on the right-hand side here, and this is learning the lessons. And that's a really important thing, and I don't know many companies that do that very, very well. We develop a lot of stuff and we launch a lot of products, but I'm not going to tell you that every product is a big success, because it simply isn't. And I think one thing that we need to get better at is making sure we have a process in place to feed what doesn't work back into the beginning of the process so we do it better next time. But you have to think about a process you're going to manage these ideas and how you're going to learn from those ideas as an organization. The second piece, so I talked then about the insights and the ideas, and the second piece is really what we do with those ideas. And, well, we have technology which we can deploy, and there are technologies which we can combine, but there are also technologies which we can develop. And we spend a lot of time in 3M actually managing our development portfolio and figuring out where and how we're going to spend our money, because there is a choice. We quite often use R&D as basically one word, but it really isn't. It's fundamentally two different things. Research and development, completely different things. They cost a lot. The cost and the investment is a lot more. The timelines involved are a lot more. And the return on investment is a lot different, whether you're doing fundamental research or development. So, as we manage our processes and our portfolio, we spend a lot of time as well deciding, okay, how much money are we spending on actual research, and how much money are we spending on development to bring new products to market? And this is a very key balancing act as we manage our portfolio. But the technologies we develop, we actually call them technology platforms, and we have around about 50 of those in the company. And some are materials-based, some are process-based, but basically what we do is we take a technology platform, and in this case we have our adhesives technology platform, which is very strong for us. We have a lot of technology around fundamental adhesives, around tapes, around liquid adhesive pastes, etc. But we combine them and we are able to apply them to different markets. In that first example I showed you, I was talking about an adhesive tape which could be used to mask a car. And I was also talking about an adhesive which could be used to attach a medical device to somebody's skin. Both adhesives, the requirements being very, very different, but the technology being very similar. And so historically what we've done is we've worked to develop the technology base and then apply it into many, many different markets, as you see down here. So we go from post-it notes down the bottom to very high strength adhesives, which are able to actually hold aircraft wings together as you're flying through the air. And so we have this strength and capability in our portfolio to really kind of take a technology and apply it to different places. The other thing we can do is combine those technologies together. So we can combine ceramics, we can combine nanomaterials, we can combine adhesives, we can apply them into different areas by taking the different technologies and combining them together. The technologies that we have in 3M are not owned by any one division. Any division can use them. And in fact, in our oldest business being abrasives, we actually about 5 years ago launched a brand new abrasive mineral. And that was actually using technology from the dental business. It's kind of amazing to think that you can take a technology from a dental business and apply it into an industrial abrasive, which is being used in metalworking applications. But we very actively work on transferring those technologies and multiplying them. And the final piece then is for me, I think, the piece that actually I spend most of my time working on, and that is the collaborative culture. Because, around the world in 3M, we have around about 12,000 researchers, and we need to, our model works on the fact that we connect them all. So it doesn't matter which country our customers are in, we are able to have this virtual network of researchers connected together such that they can bring competencies from wherever they exist to the marketplace in which we intend them to serve. We do that in a couple of ways. Firstly, this is very much part of our culture. And so this gentleman is one of our first CEOs. He was president from 1929 to 1949. And the very fact that I'm using today in 2019 a quote from nearly 100 years ago, really kind of talks about how fundamental this gentleman's views were in terms of developing employees, in terms of management tolerance to employees who come up with ideas. He basically tells us and teaches us that, management that's basically too critical or too harsh on employees when they try some things, you won't get, that's not conducive to a highly innovative environment. And so he talks about the need for management technology. He says, management to tolerance. He says, basically, if people are more or less doing what they think is the right thing to do, it's okay. If they fail, fine. Don't be stupid and fail the same way twice, but it's okay. And basically, I summarize that by hire good people and leave them alone. Part of my role is to hire the best people, put them in the right environment, and let them get on and invent stuff and encourage that innovation. And that's a real art to try and make sure that happens in the right way. And we enable that. We enable that by this organization which we call our technical forum. And this is the way via which we actually connect all of those 12,000 different people. We connect 12,000 people operating globally via this tech forum, which is sponsored by management, but it is not directed by management. So I, nor any other management position in 3M, tells this team what they do. They are self-governing, they are supported by management, but they basically operate themselves and actually interact themselves and create their own collaborative web. Every year, and in fact, I think this was 2018, this organization globally held over 1,200 different events where technical people just come together to talk, to share ideas, to transfer knowledge and experiences. And it really is a tremendous event. So just really kind of imagine everything we've got ongoing outside, but happening within your company, all these technical people coming together, talking and sharing ideas. And it's a real privilege to actually sponsor that activity, and a lot of collaboration comes out of that. And I think finally, the other thing we do is, in terms of fostering that collaborative, innovative culture, is we have this thing in 3M called 15% culture. We used to call it 15% time, and the concept here is that any technical employee has 15% of their time to work on pretty much whatever they want. They have management support to do that. So they don't need to tell the boss what they're doing. They can just disappear off. They can go into the lab. They can go see a customer. They can go to one of the manufacturing plants and sites. And they can just work on something that interests them and develop an idea which comes from that. One of the things that you may probably be the most familiar with is this thing in the middle here, our Post-it note. And this actually, it's absolutely true because I actually met the guy who invented this. The Post-it note development actually came from this 15% effort. And the story goes that the developers were actually trying to make an adhesive that was really, really strong, a really high-strength adhesive. And they came up with an adhesive that didn't really stick to anything. Now, one way of managing that would have been, okay, throw it away. It doesn't work. Doesn't do what we wanted it to do. But these people were encouraged, and they basically were entrepreneurial, and they said to themselves, there's got to be an application for this. There has to be an application for an adhesive that doesn't stick very well. And for those of you who knew the story, the principal inventor, he went to church, and he had little pieces of paper in his hymn book, and he opened them up, and they all fell out. So he didn't know which hymn he was supposed to be singing. And he thought, aha. So he actually started sticking these little bits of paper into his hymn book, and so that they didn't fall out. And this is kind of how the Post-it note came about. So this is a really kind of active area in the company, and it really helps us drive these innovation ideas and helps us really with the collaborative part of our enterprise. That was everything I had for you this afternoon. Thank you for your attention.